Welcome, and Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. And we'll go to the screen share. And this week we are starting Parsha vaYak'hel. Well, we're actually into the Parsha. So let's see what's going on here. I'm trying to get rid of the bookmark. There we are. So we were actually here. We are told, of course, the initial instructions to Moses to build the tabernacle. We're told Moses is to find Bezalel and to the various things he's going to make. And then we have the component parts that are to go into it. And we're still there, just finishing up the actual need to fabricate these different parts as to what Bezalel is going to have to do. And we're just finishing this up here. And then number 3, the third time we're going to read the same kind of material. And now is the gathering of the materials, the component parts of the Mishkan. We'll get to that, God willing. So you can see it's repeated so many times because it is something so precious, this ability, right, to have a direct connection with the divine, to be able to link heaven and earth. So just continuing some of the specific components of the Mishkan, et yitdot HaMishkan. These are the posts or the tent pins, okay, that of the tabernacle, ve'et yitdot hachatzer, and the posts or pins of the courtyard, ve'et meitrehem, and their cords. And Rashi explains, if you can visualize, please, that you had the tabernacle itself, which was covered by cloths. There were these boards, wooden boards, that were open and upright. And then over those boards, there were several layers of skins and cloth, and they needed to be put down in a way so that they wouldn't flap in the breeze. And so they needed pins for that. And then there was a courtyard that was made out of various cloths and with posts. So those posts had to be secured, and the cloths themselves had to be made sure that they were secure as well. And that's what we're talking about here. So Yitdot is over here, Yitdot, Litkoa velikshor bahem, in order to affix and to tie down with them sofei hayiriot, the edges of the yiriot, of the curtains, ba'aretz, in the earth, shelu yanu baruach, that they shouldn't sway around in the wind. And the word meitrehem, a simpler word, sometimes it's translated as a string, like the string of an instrument, but here he translates chavalim, ropes, in order likshor, to tie. So these various details regarding this, and onwards a little bit more. Ve'et bigdei hasrad l'sharet b'kodesh. Bigdei means clothing, something like that. Hasrad, the service cloths, l'sharet b'kodesh, to serve in holiness. We'll explain what we mean. Et bigdei hakodesh, and the holy garments, laharon hakohen, for Aaron the priest, ve'et bigdei vanav l'chahen, and the clothing of his sons in order to minister. So what are these bigdei hasrad? So he explains, Rashi explains, bigdei hasrad. Lechasot Aaron, these were cloths, tarps actually, right? To cover up the ark, the hashulchan, and the table, the menorah, and the candelabra, the mizbachot, and the altars b'sha'at siluk masaot, when they were taken down in order to travel, to carry them to the next location. So they weren't exposed, and these bigdei srad are understood in the tradition as meaning these tarps that were used to cover up the various holy articles of furniture so that they weren't exposed when the tabernacle was disassembled and then moved to the next location. And the clothing of the priests of Aaron and his sons, that's pretty self-explanatory. So, vayetzu kol adat b'nei Yisrael milifnei Moshe. So after Moses had given these instructions, told them that Bezalel and Oholiav were going to be in charge, and all the people were listening to the instructions regarding this Mishkan, vayetzu kol adat, the entire congregation of the children of Israel went out milifnei Moshe, from the presence of Moses. So, end of that particular thought. I'm looking to see if there's anything. No Rashis. Now, the third time, vayavo kol ish asher nesa'a libo, right? And every man whom, well, this is the translation I believe that Safaria perhaps gives. Nesa'a libo literally means whose heart moved him, but they translate it as who excelled in ability. And that's, they were competent, right? Every person who was competent, v'chol asher nadva rucho, and whomsoever had a generous spirit, right? His spirit moved him to donate, and the davar is a gift, right? Heviu et trumat Hashem. They brought the donations to Hashem, lemlechet ha'ohel moed, for the construction or the work of the tent of meeting, ulachol avodato, and everything regarding its construction, ulivigdei hakodesh, and for the sacred garments. Again, I don't think we have, no Rashi on this. Vayavohu anashim al hanashim. It says this is a little bit, the syntax here is a little bit different, difficult, challenging. Literally, it means the men came upon the women, literally. But al can also mean next to or with, okay? Kol nediv lev, everyone who was generous, had a generous heart. Heviu chach, they brought chach. These are words that require translation. Rashi is going to explain them. Bangles, the nezem would be a nose ring, the tabaat, and would be a regular ring. The chumaz is another word that requires, it's a very strange word, and Rashi explains that it was some kind of jewel that was placed over a woman's private parts. Kol klei zahav, all kinds of gold vessels. V'chol ish asher henif nufa zahav laHashem, and every man who donated, I would say, tnufa, henif tnufa. You can hear there's a sort of an alliteration of words here, but basically made a donation, waved a wave offering. So we have other places where Aaron and the priests are told to make a formal wave offering. So it is a kind of presentation, is what we're talking about. Zahav, gold for Hashem. So let's take a look at the Rashi here. Al Hanashim. So first of all, this whole sentence has stuff that's challenging to it. Al Hanashim. So Rashi says, Im Hanashim. He says the men came along with the women. Usmuchin aleihem, and literally it means they depended on them, hung on to them, something like that. But samuch means next to. So he goes on, there's a comment now, this is probably not Rashi here, but the editor, okay? And he says, Ma shatirgum heniach al kipshuto. And he says, the reason why the Targum, the Aramaic translation, I believe this is heniach means he leaves, he places the al kipshuto, like its simple meaning on mishum dalo mitagem, because he does not translate vaYavohu ha'anashim. He doesn't translate the phrase vaYavohu ha'anashim. The men came as va'ate gavraya. The men came. That's literally atu, to come. Gavraya means the men. Kamoshe metagen la'el, as he translates in Aramaic above, la'el, above, mine, from this. Rak metagen, but there he translates heviu, okay, vayavo, excuse me, they came. He says umaitan. He uses the term umaitan as opposed to va'atu. So again, it does basically essentially mean to come along. So it does come from the term ata. Let's take a look at the Rashi here. So, or rather at the thing. So here we go. Umaitan guvraiha al nashaya, right? The men brought on the women. Okay. So we'll see. And what he means to say here is sheheviu chach v'nizem ba'odan al hanashim, that they brought these bracelets and nose rings, etc., while they still were on the women. In other words, the women were wearing them at the time when they donated these. Kamoshe katav Rashi, as Rashi writes, al tavu et ha'izim, regarding wove the goats. Now, that's, of course, sounds mysterious at this point. We're going to get to that fairly quickly, but what they're talking about, Rashi explains, is that when they brought the woven goat hair, there was a special craft skill that these women had to actually weave the hair of the goats while they were still on the goats themselves, and then I assume they then cut off the hair at that particular point. So the Targum and Rashi sense that what we're talking about here is that the women, they came along with their women and their wives, and at that point the wives offered up these various articles of jewelry. Let me just finish this and then just a brief reflection. Chach, he takes the word chach, hu tachshit, it's an item of jewelry, shel zahav, made of gold, agul, and it's round, it's in a circle, natun al hazroah, which is placed on the wrist, v'hu hatzamid, it's also known as a tzamid. So in other words, a bangle. The chumaz. So now he explains this term chumaz. Kli zahavhu, so it's also an article of gold. Natun keneged otor makom. So Rashi uses a euphemism for a woman's private parts, and he says, which is also, of course, a euphemism. So he says it's placed opposite that place, or tomako means that place, leisha, for a woman. Verat botenu pishu, okay, and our sages interpreted shem kumaz, this noun kumaz, as an abbreviation. Kan, there's the kaf, makom, place, zima of, zima is, it's got to do with lewdness. Zima has the understanding of lewdness. So they're understanding kumaz as an abbreviation for kan makom zima. So interesting. Interesting stuff. So the reflection that I was going to give you was based on the fact that, remember, when they built the golden calf, Aaron told the men to take jewelry from their wives and their children. In other words, and there's the midrash behind that, that Aaron was hoping that the wives and the children would not want to give up their jewelry and would make it very difficult for the men to go ahead and find the gold to construct the golden calf. The text itself, going back into the text of the Torah, makes a suggestion that the men, when they encountered that difficulty, were very happy to donate their own gold. That's sort of implied by the text there. And here, on the other hand, there's something being said here about how the women were willing to donate their gold. And you'll see that women are involved quite a bit in the actual fabrication of the tabernacle, both with their materials and also with their skills, along with the men. So there's something interesting about that, and beautiful and symbolic, that it really represented shalom, a wholeness, a mutuality, and working together. Onwards. V'chol ish asher nimtza ito, and every man with whom was found tchelet, that would be blue, v'argaman, that would be purple, v'tolaat shani, and crimson yarns. And remember, I'm not certain, this word tolat, which also means a worm, whether or not that's referring to silk, v'sheish, and fine linen, v'izim, and goats. So it simply says goats, but it means the hair, the goat hair that they made as a fabric, they wove as a fabric. The orot elim me'odamim, and tanned ram skins. Elim, ayil is a ram or is a skin. Me'odamim means tanned red, from the term adom, meaning red, right? Ram skins dyed red. V'orot tachashim, and the skins of a tachash. The animal, whatever tachash is, we can only base it on tradition as to what a tachash was. Hevi, they brought. The Targum translates tachash as kasasgona, right? Sometimes it's translated as a dolphin or a porpoise or something like that. Of course, people then ask the question, well, where do they find porpoises or dolphins in the desert? And the answer, I think, is relatively simple, and that is, that's not to say they didn't have these kinds of skins in Egypt, and that they simply brought these things along with them, not necessarily with the intention of building the tabernacle at the time when they took them, but that's where they found these skins. It didn't say they brought porpoises or dolphins. It says they brought their skins. And the idea of sasgona, Rashi explains, is a combination of two words. Sas, and you've heard the term sason. Some of you have heard the term sason v'simcha, meaning joy and happiness. And the word gona, Rashi writes out as gavna, meaning color, happy about its color. And the idea that these particular skins were iridescent. That seems to be the suggestion, that they changed color as you looked at them. In other words, and I believe that's the nature of iridescence. Let's take a look at the Rashi here. V'chol asher nimtzaito, and regarding every man with whom was found. So tchelet or agaman, whether it could be blue or purple or tolat shani or crimson yarns or orlot. So what Rashi is saying is, we don't need to take this sentence so literally as to say, well, only if this man had all these things would they bring them. It means he brought, if they had any one of these things or a combination. or orot elim, or skins of rams, ram skins, or tachashim, or this particular tachash, kulam, heavy or. All of them, any person who had such items, they all brought them, or one of them, or whatever. Kol meirim trumat kesef u'nechoshet. So we're talking about the various donations that they were bringing, right? Anyone who, this is from the word truma, comes from meirim. In other words, to separate out or to lift up, literally. Trumat kesef, a gift of silver, u'nechoshet, or brass or copper. Heviu et trumat Hashem. They brought this donation to Hashem, to the Lord. V'chol asher nimtza ito atzei shitim. So we're trying to cover every component part that went in, that is the materials that went into the tabernacle. And anyone who with whom was found atzei shitim, right? Was it did we say it was acacia wood? Okay, l'chol melechet avodah, for all the work and construction, heviu, they brought it, right? For all the labor and the work, they brought it. V'chol isha chochmat lev biyadeha, and any woman, or every woman who had skill, chochmat lev, right, wisdom of the heart, biyadeha, in her hands, tavu, they wove, vayavu matve, then they brought the woven fabric, et hatchelet, the blue, ve'et ha'argaman, and the purple, ve'et tolat hasheni, and the crimson yarns, ve'et hashesh, and the fine linen. Let's see, this is the next verse. V'chol hanashim asher nasa livan, otana, b'chochma, and any woman or every woman whom their heart moved them in wisdom. In other words, any woman who was a skilled craftsperson, tavu, they wove, et ha'izim, they wove the goats. That's what it means literally, right? So let's take a look here. Sorry. Tavu et ha'izim. Tavu et ha'izim. So they wove the goats. And this is taken from the Talmud Shabbat 99, page 99. He haita omenet yetera. She was a extra skilled artisan. Al gabei ha'izim, because on the backs of the goats, tavin utan, they would actually weave this particular fabric. V'hanasiim, and the princes, literally it means, but what it's talking about is the chieftains of the tribes. Heviu, they brought, et avnei hashoam, they brought the onyx stones, the et avnei hamiluim, and the stones to set the stones for setting, la ephod v'lachoshen, for the ephod. Remember, the shoulder straps of the ephod were where they put the onyx stones, v'lachoshen, and for the breastpiece. So Rashi, v'hanisiim heviu, and the chieftains brought. Amar Rabbi Natan, said Rabbi Natan. This is a rabbi from the time period of the Gemara. I think he's an Amora. Mara'u nisiim. Why? What did the chieftains see? Lehitnadev b'chanukata meizbeach, when it came to their gifts for the dedication of the altar. Batchila, when they did it to begin with. In other words, after the tabernacle was set up and when it was being dedicated to service, we read about how each prince on a separate day brought exactly the same offerings. And in fact, that's the Torah reading for Chanukah. Notice Chanukat HaMizbeach. So Chanukah means dedication. So why did they bring it to begin with? Over Melechet HaMishkan, but when it came to the construction of the tabernacle, Lo Hitnadvu Batchila, they didn't offer their gifts at the beginning. So why in one place and why in the other place? Ela kach amru. So this is the explanation. This is what they were thinking, Hanisiim, that the princes or the chieftains were thinking. Yitnadvu tzibur ma shemitnadvim. Let the public, in other words, the rest of the Israelites, let them donate whatever it is they want to donate. Uma shemechasrin anu mashliimim. And whatever they aren't able to donate, we'll fill in. We'll donate whatever is left to donate that they don't. We're going to fill up the gap. Kevan shehishlimu tzibur et hakol. Well, once they saw that the rest of the Israelites, in fact, brought everything, they didn't leave anything out. Shne'emar, as it says later in Exodus 36, V'hamalacha haita dayam, that when it came to the work, there was, in fact, more than enough. There was enough for all the work. Amru nisiim, so then the princes said or thought, right, ma aleinu la'asot, what do we have left to do? Heviu et avnei hashoam, and that's at that point that they decided that the things that were lacking were the onyx stones, etc. Lachach hitnavu b'chanukat hamizbeach tchila, and that's the reason why they didn't wait when it came to dedicating the altar and the tabernacle. They right off the bat made their gifts, brought their gifts. Ulefi shenitzlu mitchila. And Rashi says there's actually a little remez in our text, a little allusion in our text that indicates the fact that nitatzlu means they were a little bit lazy, right, in the beginning. To begin with, nechsara ot mishmam, there is a letter missing from their name, and it says v'hanisiim ketiv. So it doesn't say v'hanisiim in the regular spelling. It's written Hanisiim without that yud, and here it is, Hanisiim. Notice how the yud is missing here, and that would be considered a little allusion, a little remez to the fact that the Nisiim behaved in this way, and that's where we'll stop today. So I'm going to pop in the arrow, and God willing, we will pick this up tomorrow with a continuation with the gift that the princes brought for the construction of the tabernacle. And I'm going to stop the share, and we can stop the recording and look forward to tomorrow.